The chains bit into Commander Orion Voss's wrists as the royal guards dragged him across the gleaming obsidian floor of the Galaxian throne room. Towering crystalline pillars stretched upward into the misty heights of the cathedral-like chamber, each one refracting the violet light from the twin moons of Galaxia Prime. The air smelled of exotic spices and ozone, the distinctive scent of power that permeated everything in the stellar Imperium. 50 human diplomats and officers knelt in a neat row before the Empress's dais, their heads bowed in submission. The Galaxian victory over Earth's colonies had been swift and devastating. Humanity had learned too late that their weapons were no match for the psionic abilities of the Galaxian Armada. Orion alone remained standing, despite his captivity. Commander Voss of Earth, announced High Chancellor Rixer, his iridescent scales shimmering as he gestured toward the prisoner. The last commander of the human resistance fleet, the Empress Nixara, rose from her crystalline throne. Unlike the reptilian appearance of her subjects, she was almost humanoid, her skin a luminescent blue, her eyes holding galaxies within their depths. 6 slender arms emerged from her ornate robes, each adorned with living metal that writhed like mercury around her fingers. Kneel before Empress Nixara, supreme ruler of the 7 systems, conqueror of the Outer Rim, and now, subjugator of Earth, Rixer commanded. Orion lifted his chin. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, but his gaze remained steady. I kneel only to equals. I see none here. A collective gasp rippled through the court. The Galaxian nobility hissed their displeasure, forked tongues flicking between needle-like teeth. Interesting. The Empress's voice resonated with harmonic undertones that made the air vibrate. She descended the crystalline steps, each movement, liquid grace. Do you not fear death, human? Death comes to us all, Empress. Some just have more impressive thrones to die upon. The Empress circled him, her eyes narrowing. She was close enough now that Orion could feel the strange energy emanating from her, a prickling sensation across his skin that sent shivers down his spine. I've conquered 12 species across 27 star systems, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the vast chamber. All have knelt, all have sworn fealty. What makes humans different? We stand for what we believe in, Orion replied, even when standing means dying. The Empress's lips curved into what might have been a smile. Chancellor Rixer believes I should execute you as an example. Rixer strikes me as the unimaginative type, the Chancellor hissed, hands moving to the ceremonial blade at his waist. And yet, the Empress continued, ignoring her advisor's outrage, killing you would be predictable. I did not conquer half the galaxy by being predictable. She reached out, one of her 6 hands hovering near Orion's face without touching him. I sense something in you, something I haven't encountered in thousands of years of conquest. It's called stubborn defiance. We humans excel at it. A genuine laugh escaped the Empress, a sound like crystal bells that stunned the court into silence. No, Commander Voss, what I sense is potential. She turned to address the stunned assembly. The human race has proven themselves worthy adversaries. Their technology may be primitive, but their spirits are remarkable. She faced Orion again, her eyes swirling with cosmic light. I offer you a choice that I have never offered any conquered species. Become my consort. Join your bloodline with mine, and humanity will be elevated to full citizenship within the Imperium, rather than servitude. Orion's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I am always serious about power, Commander. And you have shown me a power I respect. She extended her hand. Your answer? I need time to consider your proposal, Orion said, keenly aware of the hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon him. The fate of humanity now balanced on his response to this unprecedented offer. The Empress withdrew her outstretched hand, her expression unreadable. 3 Earth days. You will remain as my guest. She gestured to her guards. Remove his chains and prepare the Azure Suite. Chancellor Rixer slithered forward, his scales bristling with indignation. Empress, this is unprecedented. The human should... The human has a name, Chancellor, she interrupted, her voice carrying a dangerous edge, and I have made my decision. As the guards led Orion away, he caught a glimpse of the kneeling Earth delegation. Ambassador Illyria Caden gave him the slightest of nods, a silent command that carried more weight than words. Buy time. Learn what you can. The Azure Suite proved to be less a prison and more a lavish apartment suspended in a crystal spire overlooking the capital city of Lyraxis. Swirling nebula-like clouds drifted beneath the transparent floor, while the ceiling opened to the star-filled sky above. The Empress will join you for dinner, announced a slender Galaxian attendant before departing. Orion spent the next hours examining his surroundings, searching for weaknesses, escape routes, or surveillance. He found the latter in abundance, tiny crystal mites that scuttled away whenever he approached. When the doors finally parted, the Empress entered alone, her imperial regalia replaced by a simpler gown that still managed to shimmer with starlight. Commander. Voss, she said, taking a seat at the table that materialized from the floor. I trust your accommodations are adequate. Nicer than my cell on your battlecruiser, he admitted, remaining standing. Though I'm curious why the sudden upgrade. Yesterday I was an enemy combatant. And today you are a potential solution to a problem that has vexed me for centuries. Food appeared on the table, some dishes recognizably human, others distinctly alien. Please sit. The food is not poisoned. Orion cautiously took a seat. What problem could the ruler of 7 systems possibly have that requires marrying a prisoner? Stagnation. The Empress selected what appeared to be a crystalline fruit. The Galaxian Empire has conquered every worthy adversary in our reach. Our technology advances, our territory expands, but our spirit diminishes. Her eyes fixed on him. Until we encountered humans. So this is what? An anthropological experiment? This is survival. She leaned forward. Your species fights, with remarkable tenacity despite overwhelming odds. You create art during warfare. You laugh in the face of extinction. These qualities are valuable. Orion sampled a familiar-looking bread. And if I refuse? Then humanity takes its place like all other conquered species. Laborers, resource providers, subjects. She tilted her head. Not slaves. We are not barbarians, but certainly not equals. And if I accept? Humanity becomes part of the Imperium's governing coalition. Your people would retain autonomy over your worlds while gaining access to our technology, protection, and trade networks. She paused. And you would rule at my side. As what? A figurehead? A trophy? The Empress's eyes flashed. As my equal consort with all the power that entails. Orion set down his utensil. Why me? There are diplomats, politicians, people actually, trained for this. None of them refused to kneel. She studied him intently. In that moment of defiance, I saw what I needed. Someone who would stand against me when necessary. The Imperium doesn't need another sycophant. It needs balance. And what exactly would this marriage entail? The Empress's lips curved slightly. Political alliance primarily. The physical aspects are optional, though not incompatible. Her gaze lingered on him momentarily. But most importantly, it would mean your voice guiding the future of humanity within the Imperium. As night fell over Lyraxis, Orion stood at the window, watching the city's crystal spires ignite with bioluminescence. Behind him, the Empress waited silently for his response. I'll need guarantees, he finally said. Written treaties, protections for Earth and all human colonies. Of course, and direct communication with Earth's leadership. Acceptable. Orion turned to face her. Then I have a counter-proposal. The Galaxian High Council chamber erupted into chaos when Empress Nixara announced the terms of the human alliance. Orion stood beside her, dressed in a hybrid of Galaxian, ceremonial armor and an Earth military uniform, watching the spectacle with calm detachment. This is sacrilege, roared Vizier Keltak. his ceremonial headdress quivering with rage. The human demands not just consort status, but full co-regency, access to our military secrets, technological exchange. Chancellor Rixer remained conspicuously silent, his serpentine eyes calculating as the debate raged around him. I have ruled for 7 centuries, Nixara said, her voice slicing through the commotion like a blade. In that time, I have expanded our empire from a single star system to dominion over half the known galaxy. Do you question my judgment now? The chamber fell silent. The human alliance offers us something conquest cannot. Innovation. She gestured to Orion. Commander Voss has demonstrated that humans possess qualities our empire needs. Their art, their resilience, their unpredictability. And what guarantees do we have of their loyalty? Asked Elder Thaxis, her ancient scales dulled with age. The same guarantee we have from any species. Mutual benefit, Orion answered, stepping forward. Earth needs your protection and technology. In return, we offer new perspectives, cultural exchange, and military support against your enemies. Rixer finally spoke, his voice silky with hidden menace. And what of the marriage ritual? Will the human submit to the blood communion? Orion had been briefed on this. The ancient Galaxian bonding ceremony that supposedly linked the life forces of the participants through an exchange of blood and psychic energy. Scientists on Earth had analyzed the ritual and concluded it was largely ceremonial, with some minor biochemical effects. I will participate in all traditional aspects of the union, Orion confirmed, meeting Rixer's gaze steadily. The council's objections gradually subsided, though Orion noted which members remained hostile. Nixara concluded the session by declaring that the ceremony would take place in 7 days, followed by a formal integration of human representatives into the imperial governance structure. Later, in the diplomatic chambers, Orion met with the Earth delegation via secure quantum link. They accepted the counter-proposal? Ambassador Caden asked, disbelief evident in her voice. With surprisingly little resistance from the Empress herself, Orion confirmed. It's almost as if this was her plan all along. Admiral Levant's hologram flickered. And you trust her? Trust is irrelevant, Orion replied. The treaty protections are being embedded in their central governance algorithms. Breaking them would destabilize their entire legal system. And the marriage? Caden pressed. A necessary political maneuver. Orion kept his expression neutral, though I suspect the Empress has her own motivations beyond what she's revealed. That evening, Nixara invited Orion to observe the sunset from the Imperial Gardens, a sprawling ecosystem containing plant species from every conquered world. They walked in silence until reaching a section containing earth flora, roses, oak saplings, and wildflowers arranged around a small pond. Your botanists reproduced these perfectly, Orion noted, surprised by a sudden pang of homesickness. I requested this garden installed after our first reconnaissance of Earth decades ago. Nixara knelt to touch a rose petal. Your planet's biodiversity is remarkable. You studied us that long before invading? We study all potential adversaries. She rose, fixing him with her cosmic gaze. Few prove worthy of more than conquest. And yet here we are, planning an alliance instead of my execution. Here we are indeed. She moved closer. The Council fears you, Orion Voss. They fear what your influence represents. And you don't? I fear stagnation more than change. Her multiple hands gestured to the stars emerging above. The Imperium has grown complacent. Without challenge, without friction, we cease to evolve. Orion studied her, seeing beyond the alien features to something unexpectedly familiar. The isolation of command, the burden of responsibility for billions of lives. You're not what I expected, he admitted. Nor you, she replied. The blood, communion in 3 days will seal our pact. Are you prepared for what that entails? I've reviewed the procedure. The procedure, yes. A smile touched her lips, but not the experience. Our minds will touch, Commander, There will be no secrets between us during the ritual. For the first time since his capture, Orion felt a flutter of genuine concern. That wasn't in the briefing. Some things cannot be explained in diplomatic documents. She turned to leave. Rest well, future consort. The next few days will determine much. The ancient temple of Jacral loomed against Calaxia Prime's violet sky, its twisted spires defying conventional geometry. Built from black stone that absorbed light rather than reflected it, the structure predated the Imperium itself, a relic from when the Calaxians were merely one species among many, not the rulers of 7 systems. Orion stood at its entrance, dressed in ceremonial robes of midnight blue etched with silver symbols he couldn't read. Behind him, a small contingent of human representatives watched nervously. Before him stretched a path lined with Calaxian nobles, their scales glistening under the light of smoking censers. Ambassador Caden adjusted his collar one final time. "Remember the protocol," she whispered, "and remember what's at stake." He nodded once. Earth scientists had prepared him as best they could for the blood communion, injecting him with nanites designed to protect against any potential biochemical manipulation. What they couldn't protect against was the reported psychic component, the melding of minds that Nyxara had warned him about. The procession began with a low, thrumming sound that Orion felt in his bones more than heard with his ears. He walked forward alone, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. This wasn't just a marriage. It was humanity's induction into a galactic power structure that had existed for millennia. Inside the temple, darkness gave way to bioluminescent light emanating from pulsing veins in the walls. The central chamber opened into a massive dome where thousands of Calaxians watched from ascending tiers. At the center stood Nyxara, resplendent in armor that seemed forged from captured starlight. "You came," she said when he reached her, her voice pitched for his ears alone. "Did you doubt I would?" "Until this moment, yes." Her eyes searched his. Many would flee when faced with true communion. High Priest Zovak approached, his ancient form hovering slightly above the ground. In his gnarled hands he carried an obsidian bowl and a ceremonial dagger made from what appeared to be crystallized darkness. "The blood communion has not been performed with an off-worlder in 12,000 cycles," the priest announced to the assembly. "Today we witness the binding of Empress Nyxara, sovereign of the 7 systems, to Commander Orion Voss of Earth." The ritual began with ceremonial questions in the ancient Calaxian tongue, which Orion answered with phonetically memorized responses. Then came the blood offering, a shallow cut across his palm that stung more than its depth warranted. His blood dripped into the obsidian bowl, mixing with the iridescent blue fluid from Nyxara's own wound. "Now drink," instructed the priest, offering the bowl first to Nyxara, who sipped without hesitation, then to Orion. The liquid burned, going down, carrying a taste of metal and something else, something electric and ancient. For a moment nothing happened. Then the world exploded into sensation. Orion felt his consciousness expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his body. Colors he had no names for bloomed in his vision. And then he was no longer alone in his mind. Nyxara's presence flowed through him like quicksilver, bringing with it fragments of memories not his own. Centuries of rule, the weight of countless decisions, the loneliness of supreme power. "You see now," her voice echoed in his thoughts. "This is what I carry." He couldn't hide his own memories either. His childhood on Earth's lunar colony, the devastation of the Calaxian invasion, his capture after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, and his unwavering determination to protect humanity. "By any means necessary, even by binding yourself to me?" her thought voice asked. "Especially that," he admitted. The psychic connection deepened, revealing layers of Nyxara's consciousness he hadn't anticipated. Doubt about the Empire's direction, concern for its future, and a genuine fascination with humanity that predated their first contact. Time lost meaning in the communion. It could have been minutes or hours before their consciousness began to separate again, leaving Orion gasping and disoriented. The temple had fallen completely silent, every Calaxian frozen in apparent shock. "It is done," announced the priest, his voice trembling slightly. "The bond is formed, and it is stronger than any in living memory." Nyxara steadied Orion with one of her hands. "Are you well?" "I saw everything," he managed, "as did I." Her expression was unreadable to the assembly, but Orion now understood the subtle shifts in her features. She was as shaken as he was. Chancellor Rixer stepped forward, performing the final proclamation that officially recognized Orion as imperial consort with full co-regency powers. But Orion barely heard the words, still processing the flood of alien memories and emotions that had transferred during the communion. One thing was clear. Nyxara's invitation hadn't been merely political calculation. There was something more, something neither of them had fully anticipated. "What happens now?" he asked quietly as they processed out of the temple. "Now," she replied, "we change the empire." 6 months into his co-regency, Orion stood on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship Luminous Ascendancy, watching as the combined human Galaxian fleet assembled in high orbit around Helios 9, the furthest human colony world. The massive vessels, sleek Galaxian cruisers alongside the more utilitarian Earthships, formed geometric patterns against the backdrop of stars. "Impressive, isn't it?" Admiral Jexal said, his reptilian features set in what Orion had learned to recognize as a smile. "Your species adapts quickly. Already your captains communicate in perfect formation protocols." "Necessity breeds adaptation," Orion replied. "The Vexhar threat leaves little room for learning curves." The discovery of the Vexhar expansion fleet, a hive-mind species bent on consuming all organic life, had accelerated the human Galaxian alliance beyond anyone's expectations. Orion's integration into the imperial power structure had initially met with resistance from both sides, but facing a common existential threat had a way of dissolving old hatreds. "The Empress requests your presence in the war chamber," said a young aide, bowing slightly. Orion found Nyxara surrounded by holographic displays showing enemy movements across 3 sectors. In the months since their communion, their connection had evolved into something neither had anticipated. A psychic link that allowed them to sense each other's emotional states across vast distances. Not quite telepathy, but something deeper. "The Vexhar have adapted their tactics," she said without preamble. "They're targeting our communication relays first, isolating each system before attacking." "They're learning," Orion noted, studying the tactical display. "We need to implement the distributed command protocol Earth developed during the Proxima conflict." Chancellor Rixer, who had reluctantly become one of their most valuable commanders, nodded in agreement. "The human approach has merit. Decentralized authority would make it harder for the Vexhar to disrupt our coordination." The meeting continued for hours, with strategies proposed, refined, and implemented across the combined fleet. What struck Orion most was how seamlessly the two species now worked together, human ingenuity complementing Galaxian discipline and technological superiority. Later, as they prepared for the coming battle in their private quarters, Nyxara studied Orion with her galaxy-filled eyes. "Something troubles you," she said. It wasn't a question. "I received word from Earth today. There are concerns about how quickly our cultures are integrating. Some fear we're losing our human identity. And what do you believe?" Orion considered the question. "I believe we're creating something new, neither fully human nor Galaxian. The question is whether that's evolution or erasure. Perhaps it is both." Nyxara's multiple hands moved in, the fluid gesture that indicated deep thought. "All significant change requires loss. The Galaxian empire I inherited is already transforming, becoming less rigid, more adaptive. Because of human influence. Because of you." She moved closer. "The blood communion revealed much to my people. They saw through me what humanity truly offers. Not just technological exchange or military alliance, but a fundamental shift in perspective." The ship's alarms suddenly blared. The Vexhar Vanguard had arrived earlier than expected, their bioorganic ships emerging from subspace like a plague of locusts. "We're needed on the bridge," Orion said, already moving toward the door. The battle that followed would later be known as the Turning of the Tide, the first major victory against the Vex-Har. Human tactical unpredictability combined with Galaxian firepower devastated the enemy fleet, but the victory came at a cost. Orion watched in horror as a Vex-Har suicide vessel crashed into the command deck of their flagship. The explosion threw him against a bulkhead, his vision blurring as emergency force fields contained the atmosphere breach. Through smoke and chaos, he saw Nyxara pinned beneath twisted metal, her iridescent blood pooling beneath her. No, he fought his way to her side, heedless of his own injuries. Her eyes found his, the galaxies within them dimming. The ship, the fleet, will survive, he assured her, working to free her from the debris. As will you. The medical team arrived, their advanced technology immediately assessing her injuries, severe but survivable. As they stabilized her condition, Orion felt their psychic link weakening, her consciousness flickering like a distant star. Don't leave, he projected through their bond, surprising himself with the intensity of his emotion. Her response came faintly. I am still here. My unexpected one. In the days that followed, as Nyxara recovered and the combined fleet pushed back the Vex-Har offensive, something fundamental shifted in the alliance. The sight of the human consort risking his life for the Empress, captured, and broadcast across both fleets, had cemented a connection between the species that no treaty could have achieved. The Council is requesting your presence, Admiral Jexal informed Orion as he maintained his vigil at Nyxara's medical pod. They need leadership while the Empress recovers. I'm not leaving her side. With respect, consort, you must. By ancient law, when the sovereign is incapacitated, the consort assumes full imperial authority. The Admiral's expression turned solemn. The Empire needs you now. Orion looked down at Nyxara's sleeping form, then back at the Admiral. Very well, but I want constant updates on her condition. Of course. As he walked toward the council chambers, Orion realized that what had begun as a political arrangement to save humanity had become something far more complex, a genuine partnership that transcended species and might, against all odds, save them both. The great hall of the newly constructed Terran embassy on Galaxia Prime buzzed with conversation as diplomats from 27 species mingled beneath crystalline chandeliers. 5 years had passed since the defeat of the Vex-Har Collective, marking a new era of galactic cooperation that few could have imagined before the war. Orion adjusted the ceremonial sash across his formal uniform, a hybrid design that symbolized his unique position as both Earth's representative and imperial consort. At his side, Ambassador Caden surveyed the gathering with satisfaction. When you first refused to kneel before the Empress, I thought we were witnessing humanity's last defiant gesture, she mused. Instead, it became the foundation of the most significant alliance in human history. A fortunate accident, Orion replied, though he knew better now. Nothing about Nyxara's decisions had been accidental. The embassy itself stood as testament to humanity's elevated status, a structure that harmoniously blended Earth architecture with Galaxian crystalline engineering. Through the transparent dome overhead, both Earth and Galaxia Prime were visible in the night sky, the two homeworlds aligned in a conjunction that occurred only once every 70 years. The Empress approaches, whispered Caden, nodding toward the main entrance. Nyxara entered without the usual imperial procession, accompanied only by Chancellor Rixer and her personal guard. The gathered diplomats parted before her, bowing or performing their species gestures of respect. She acknowledged them with graceful nods, but moved directly toward Orion. Consort, she greeted him formally, her galaxy eyes revealing the warmth that protocol concealed. Through their bond, he felt her genuine pleasure at seeing him after 3 weeks apart. Empress, he responded with equal formality, though he couldn't help the slight smile that curved his lips. The official ceremony began, the signing of the Galactic Concordat that would establish a new interstellar governance structure. No longer would the Galaxian Empire rule through conquest. Instead, a council of representatives from all allied worlds would guide collective policy, with the Empire serving as first among equals. As Nyxara pressed her palm to the authentication panel, Orion felt a flicker of something unexpected through their bond. Not doubt about the treaty, but a personal uncertainty that seemed out of character for the usually confident Empress. When the formalities concluded and the celebration began in earnest, Nyxara drew him away from the crowd and toward the embassy's private garden, a recreation of the Earth garden he had first seen on Galaxia Prime, now matured and thriving. "Something's troubling you," he said once they were alone. "Not troubling. Challenging." She gestured for him to sit beside her on a bench overlooking a small pond where earth lilies floated. "The Imperial scientists have completed their research on human Galaxian genetic compatibility." Orion felt his pulse quicken. They had discussed this possibility theoretically, the creation of a child that would embody both lineages, a living symbol of their alliance. But the technical hurdles had seemed insurmountable, and it is possible, though not without risk. Her hands moved in a pattern he recognized as nervous consideration, a very un-Empress-like gesture. The child would be neither fully human nor Galaxian, but something new, the first of a potential evolutionary branch. "You're concerned about how both our peoples would react?" "Among other things." She turned to face him fully. "When we first joined through the blood communion, our alliance was political necessity. What came after, what grew between us, was unexpected." Orion took one of her hands in his. "The best things usually are." Through their bond, he felt her complex emotions. Hope mingled with ancient Galaxian concerns about lineage and succession, alongside very human worries about the unknown. "A child would change everything," she continued. "Not just for us, but for the future of both our species. Some traditionalists already whisper that I have betrayed our ancestors by sharing power with other worlds. And yet your approval ratings among the general Galaxian population are the highest in 3 centuries, Orion countered. "The old guard always resists change, but your people have embraced it, as have mine." Beyond the garden windows they could see the celebration continuing, humans and Galaxians alongside representatives from worlds that had once been mortal enemies, now united by shared purpose. "There is something else," Nyxara said softly. "The scientists believe that a child born of our union would likely possess unprecedented psionic abilities, a melding of human intuitive thinking with Galaxian psychic potential. A bridge between worlds in more ways than one." "Yes." She hesitated. "I have ruled for over 7 centuries, Orion. I have made decisions that affected billions of lives. Yet I find myself uncertain about this most personal choice. The admission of vulnerability, something she rarely showed even to him, touched Orion deeply. He reached out through their bond, sharing his own complex emotions. His love for her that had grown from reluctant respect to something profound. His hope for their future, and yes, his own fears about the unknown path they were forging. "When I refused to kneel before you 5 years ago," he said, "I never imagined where that moment of defiance would lead. If we had followed the expected script, if I had knelt or you had executed me, none of this would exist." He gestured toward the embassy and the stars beyond. "Perhaps the universe occasionally rewards those who refuse the paths laid before them and insist on creating their own." Nyxara's eyes swirled with cosmic light as she leaned forward to press her forehead against his. The Galaxian gesture of deepest intimacy. "Then let us create something new," she whispered. Together, as the twin moons of Galaxia Prime reached their zenith, and Earth glowed like a distant sapphire in the night sky, Orion Voss, once prisoner, now consort, always defiant, embraced the alien Empress who had conquered worlds, but found herself conquered by something far more powerful than armies. Their decision would echo across generations, creating a legacy neither could have imagined when they first faced each other in that distant throne room, a legacy born not from kneeling in submission, but from standing together as equals. in the garden where plants from two worlds grew side by side, humanity's most unlikely diplomat and the universe's most powerful sovereign began writing the next chapter of galactic history, not with treaties or weapons, but with the oldest power in existence, the creation of new life and new possibilities. The defiance that had once nearly cost Orion his head had instead given both their species a future neither could have achieved alone. Proof that sometimes, refusing to kneel is the first step toward rising higher than anyone thought possible.